Hi there, I am Wild Humphrey, the Fact Master. I'll tell you all the things you never knew you didn't know, some that you probably do, and I'm back with a fact for today. Now, it's the 6th of June in 1868 that Robert Falcon Scott was born. And from the moment he was born, his father decided for him that Robert was going to go and join the Navy as soon as he was old enough. Sure enough, that's what happened, and Robert loved the idea. I mean, he'd been born in Plymouth, so what else was he going to do? He did so well in the Navy, he became a naval officer. Off he went, sailed the seven seas, and realised he loved going on expeditions. Next thing you know, Robert Falcon Scott is put in charge of the Terra Nova expedition. And at that moment he knew he was going to walk where no man had walked before. The South Pole, Antarctica itself. Well, he couldn't wait. All he had to do was get his team ready, get supplies, get organised, get going. And on the 15th of June 1910, the ship, also named Terra Nova, set sail from Cardiff, destination Antarctica. On the way it stopped to South Africa, New Zealand to pick up essential supplies. And while all this was going on, Scott was busy planning and more planning. He was dotting his I's, crossing his T's, looking forward to what was ahead. It was the 1st of November 1911 that they were off the ship and started their march into the unknown. They had everything with them they thought they needed, and they were looking forward to being the first men to make it to the South Pole. 5 men arrived at the South Pole, their destination, and they got there on the 17th of January 1912 after braving the worst weather conditions known to man. Temperatures at minus 40 degrees they'd faced, winds you wouldn't believe. But they made it, they'd been determined, they were together, they were a team. Evans, Bowyer, Wilson, Oates and Scott himself, thrilled to be there. But then they realised after a moment they weren't the first ones there. A guy called Amundsen and a Norwegian team had beat them to the South Pole 5 weeks earlier. They got there 14th of December 1911. Well, the men and Scott were devastated. They'd risked their lives to get here. They were freezing cold. They knew they had a hell of a journey back. And they weren't the first. They couldn't believe it. Worse than that, Amundsen had left Scott a note just to rub salt into the wounds. What could he do? He said in his diary, "This is a god-awful place." And all he wants to do was get out of there. They did collect some fossils while they were there, put them in their bags. When it was time to go, off they went to trek back. Only thing was, they had to get back through this unbelievable weather with unbelievable low temperatures, and they had over 860 miles to walk. They started and they kept going and going. Now Scott had arranged for some support on the way back. There's some groups to come and meet them with dogs and sleighs to really help them get back safely. But this support never arrived. Scott and them, they were devastated. Scott was telling himself, well, it must have been our fault. I've overshot the target to where we're supposed to meet them. It must be that. Surely they wouldn't have not turned up. But in the back of his mind he knew they didn't turn up. These men were in serious danger now. Evans was the first to fall. It was the 17th of February 1912. He'd taken a second fall of the day and he did not get back up. He stayed and died exactly where he fell. Enough was enough. Frostbite had gotten to him. That was it. The other 4 men carried on very, very slowly. They were being held back by Oates, because Oates had frostbite. And it was on the 16th of March. They were in their tent, hiding from all this terrible weather outside. And Oates said, "I'm going to go for a walk and I may be some time." A famous quote. Left the tent, off he went, never to be seen again. That left Scott and 2 men. Well, they could barely move. They were trying, but they couldn't. They just couldn't make any headway at all. No help was coming. Scott really knew that the days were numbered. And sure enough, the 3 of the men died in their tent on the Ross Ice Shelf in Antarctica. And they stayed there and were discovered on the 12th of November that same year. And when they were discovered, they were in their tent, which was virtually covered in ice and snow. And it became actually their frozen tomb. Guys who found them put a cross on the top of the tent, a makeshift cross. When they saw the 3 bodies inside, they knew that Scott had been the last one to die. And the last entry in his diary was on the 29th of March. And he'd written saying, "I don't believe I'll be writing anymore." His last full entry had been 6 days earlier. So what they did, they left them there, of course, entombed in ice. And now these men are probably part of a glacier. Famously, Scott of the Antarctic, he became known. And there's lots of myths and stories about God knows what. But the fact is, he made it there and never made it back. Amundsen made it there a month earlier, and he and his men all lived to tell the tale. What they did since then, out of all these stories, no blame was ever put on Scott for anything going wrong. At least not for the first 80 years or so. But in recent times, there's been a lot of controversial comments, bad decisions, bad judgment, bad weather, bad luck, so many things. Scott of the Antarctic, that name lives on, and he may not have achieved what he wanted, but what he did do, when he was found, he still had the fossils. Scientists took those fossils, and with them they confirmed that the Antarctic used to be part of another continent, and once upon a time it had sunshine and trees, and that is a fact. But today all it is the largest desert in the world, a desert of ice, and in the middle of all that lay these 5 men. I'm Wild Humphrey, the Fact Master. I hope you like that story. I'm faster than Google, you know, and everything I tell you is from up here. Please subscribe to my channel, because I will be back with much more, and that is a fact. Thank you for watching. Take it easy.